As we search for unknown life forms, we're looking at stars. Meanwhile, the unknown world is right next to us, hidden beneath the surface of the water. A fascinating story, written by nature, captured by humans. Unique stories hidden in the depths. Underwater Planet. Distant flashes of light pierce the pitch-black darkness. Darkness holds a fascinating mystery. Here, everything looks different. Diving in the darkness at night, or in caves resting in eternal twilight, is the ultimate thrill with a high dose of adrenaline. It's risky and requires experience. It's often a trip into the unknown, but the reward is incomparable. The Planet in Darkness. The diver begins his slow descent, escorted by fading glimmers of sunlight. 30 meters separate him from the bottom. As the cave entrance is relatively large, the chamber is quite well lit. Here, in this monumental well, the diver looks insignificant. If it weren't for the air bubbles and flashlight, he would be difficult to spot. If night diving in open water is considered exciting, then diving in caves promises twice the thrill. It's one of the riskiest forms of underwater exploration. During our expedition, we can depend only on artificial light. It is the most important element of our equipment. As we approach the bottom, we can see something remarkable. These underwater clouds are hydrogen sulfide. Streaks of hydrogen sulfide make us think of stellar nebulae. Yet the best is still to come. Out of these fog-shrouded waters appear surreal fantasy images. It's hard to believe that we're deep underwater, and everything that we see is not a film set, but the bottom of an underwater cave. These trees fell here long ago, along with the roof of the cave, granting access to the underground reservoir. Now, fading in hydrogen sulfide, these branches create a spectacle of light, shadow, and illusion. It looks as though there was a small lake filled with turbid, murky water. Our view becomes obstructed by a milky white substance. The diver looks surreal. What seemed to be the bottom of the cave is in fact chemocline, a barrier separating two layers of water with different chemical compositions. A layer of fresh water that comes from rainfall covers the salt water below, cutting it off from the air. Different densities prevent the two layers from mixing. This makes an ideal environment for anaerobic bacteria. It is they who are responsible for the copious amounts of hydrogen sulfide, which dissolves in the water and remains within the chemocline. There is so much of it that it looks like a solid mass. We dive a few meters down. The layer of hydrogen sulfide completely cuts off sunlight. The cave reveals its darker, more startling image, completely opposite from the light-filled chamber where we started our journey. This bleak scenery continues down to a depth of 60 meters, to the very bottom of the cave. Thanks to the layers of hydrogen sulfide present in this remarkable cave, which is in fact one enormous well, we were able to easily transition from diving in daylight to diving in darkness. In open waters, we would have to wait until nightfall. Night falls. The sun fades over the horizon. Time for another exciting venture into the unknown. We never know what the darkness holds. We only see as far as our lights allow. What lurks beyond their reach? We have to stay vigilant. By day, visibility underwater is tens of meters. By night, barely more than a dozen. The sea has always evoked both fear and respect. Imaginations have filled the deep with frightening monsters. Tales of giant squid and killer sharks still haunt our collective memories. What lurks in the shadows? By night, the fish inhabiting the reef are less busy than during the day. Most of them sleep, tucked away in different nooks and crannies. Woken up from its sleep, the pufferfish seems disorientated. Its intestines in particular, but also its liver and roe, contain a deadly substance called tetrodotoxin, which interferes with the transmission of signals from nerves to muscles, causing paralysis and death by suffocation. To make matters worse, the victim remains conscious and aware till the very end. there is no known antidote to tetrodotoxin. Night can host spectacular events we most certainly won't see during the day. Here we can see a perfect example of symbiosis between a fish and a jellyfish. This particular case is extremely rare. Usually it's the fry or juveniles, not an adult fish, that enters into this type of relationship. The fish finds shelter in the umbrella of the jellyfish and its tentacles. These are armed with rows of nematocysts, which explode with poisonous threads when they come into contact with a foreign body. The fish, however, is immune to the poison. The jellyfish swims gracefully through the darkness. The way it moves is very characteristic. It involves rhythmic contractions that eject water from under its umbrella. It looks as if it is constantly pulsing. Jellyfish don't travel long distances. They float along with plankton, which they're also considered to be, despite their significant size. The way they move is not meant to propel, but rather effectively find food. The tentacles catch and transport food to the mouth. They're also the only line of defense the jellyfish has against predators. And there is plenty to be afraid of. For many species, nighttime is the time to hunt. It's hard to find a more spectacular hunting style than that of the lionfish. These fish, which belong to the scorpionfish family, owe their name to their distinctive fin color. The pectoral fins and the first dorsal fin are the same length. They're joined together only at the base, which means they can be spread out widely, giving the fish its unique appearance. The lionfish slowly patrols the seabed. For defense, it doesn't use speed, but venomous spikes. When in danger, the lionfish points the spikes towards the potential enemy. This maneuver is purely defensive. The lionfish doesn't use its venom to paralyze its prey. During the hunt, it hovers over the prey. Now, the widely spread out fins serve to distract and disorientate the opponent. The lionfish attacks swiftly, opening its mouth and sucking in water along with the prey. However, even in the face of such a rapid attack, the prey is not completely without a chance to escape. But most are not so lucky. No longer hungry, the lionfish disappears in the water. Plankton, the largest concentration of multicellular organisms on our planet. Unlike the Great Wall, it can actually be seen from space. With the help of our lights, the plankton turns into a starlit heaven. Among the millimeter-sized organisms, we can see slightly bigger fish larvae. The salp is a small creature which works like a small vacuum. It sucks in the water, filters it for nutrients, and then contracts its muscles to eject the water. This propulsion allows it to move. Here we can see a rare case of symbiosis between the salp and a larva which hides inside it. The small size makes it easy prey. Our lights allow us to witness numerous wonders. This transparent creature is the larva of the eel. It's remarkable that eels, which are freshwater fish, come to the tropical part of the ocean to spawn their eggs. It is from here that their larvae travel along with plankton over several thousand kilometers, finally to reach rivers and lakes around the world. Night is the ideal time for predators. Sharks always make the heart beat faster. The white-tip reef shark is a specific species. It has a long, slim body, a short head, and its dorsal fin is moved towards the back. This atypical shape comes in handy during the hunt. Whitetips move very close to the bottom, predominantly hunting for cephalopods, octopuses, squid, cuttlefish, and all fish that hide in the coral reef during the night. It is a long wait for dawn to come, and the hunt is about to begin. Sharks use their best sense for hunting in the dark: electricity. They can detect even the smallest change of electrical field. And that might be a sign of hiding prey. That triggers the attack. Their spindly bodies allow the sharks to enter the narrowest cracks. And as the whirling sharks move rapidly, this attracts even more white tips. This is the night of the hunter. When looking at this nightlife, one can't help but wonder, how do the actual inhabitants of this underwater kingdom see it themselves? Fish, despite having eyes, predominantly use other senses. The lateral line, which is comprised of small bodies called neuromasts, allows the fish not only to detect even the slightest water movement, but can also determine its direction and intensity. That's what makes fish so well adapted to this dark environment. Most fish see fluorescence, a characteristic glow caused by ultraviolet rays. This skill especially comes in handy in areas with limited visibility. Underwater, where visibility drops with every meter, this ability allows them to find food and also to notice potential dangers in time. The remarkable thing is that the corals and anemones can glow in different colors. Scientists believe that this process is strictly connected with algae that live in symbiosis with the coral. By changing their pigmentation, corals can determine how much light necessary for photosynthesis reaches the algae, thus protecting them from overexposure. We can witness this spectacular light show thanks to special lamps. But for the fish, that's their daily reality. Diving in darkness allows us to marvel at a world that simply cannot be seen by day. But there is one place, always cloaked in darkness, that is considered one of the most beautiful of the entire underwater kingdom. Yucatan, the cradle of Mayan civilization. A place that survived the collision with an enormous planetoid over 60 million years ago. The same planetoid that was responsible for the extinction of the dinosaurs. 180,000 square kilometers, an area twice the size of Ireland, entirely deprived of lakes, rivers, or even streams. But nevertheless covered with lush plant life. The only source of fresh water here are ponds called cenotes, which are actually entrances to flooded cave networks that can spread for kilometers. Entirely deprived of lakes, rivers, or even streams, but nevertheless covered with lush plant life. The only source of fresh water here are ponds called cenotes, which are actually entrances to flooded cave networks that can spread for kilometers. Underground, the Yucatan is like Swiss cheese. The cenotes, once considered by the Mayans as gateways to Xibalba, the frightening kingdom of the dead, today are the gateways to this wonderful diver's paradise. Created as a result of karst, a process of dissolving soft limestone, these caves were shaped into their present form through thousands of years. During the last ice age, the level of the seas and oceans dropped by approximately 100 meters, draining the system of underground passageways. For thousands of years, they were exposed to rainwater, which has deepened them and carved breathtaking formations like stalactites descending from the roofs, stalagmites ascending from the bottom, and columns, which are created when the two meet. While swimming through the cenotes, we pass sections that were created in the process of underground corrosion, where rocks have been washed away by chemical reactions. There are also sections covered by a more aggressive force, erosion. Here, the flowing water converged to create small underwater streams that transformed over time into raging underwater currents that then washed away the rocks and gave shape to these wide passageways. Water penetrating the rock collects in bigger and bigger channels. Limestone deposits would have had no chance of forming here. Past caves located on land and their deposits are particularly susceptible to man's activities, given the delicate atmospheric balance inside, which is important for crystal. Karst caves located on land and their deposits are particularly susceptible to man's activities, given the delicate atmospheric balance inside, which is important for crystallizing or dissolving the rock formation. Just opening the caves and changing the airflow or humidity can have detrimental effects. That's why many caves that are open for tourists have limited entries, and some are even permanently closed off, so as not to change the ambience inside. But this is not the case with cenotes. The only thing that can endanger the rock formations are careless divers who can physically damage them. Despite their massive structure, these rocks seem light and delicate. Maybe it's because they're suspended in water, or that in some places they're almost complete, forever petrified. Which all goes to show that nature is the world's most wonderful architect. "13,000 years ago, when the Earth began to warm, the icebergs started to melt. The level of oceanic waters was increasing gradually, and the cave networks were flooded once again, waiting to be discovered by a species with proper equipment and an irrepressible desire to discover every corner of the Earth. Diving among underwater formations, which resemble Gaudi's architectural designs, is a one-of-a-kind experience. In order to do justice to this overwhelming beauty, we have to use proper lighting. We use specially constructed lamps with high luminous efficiency. Their only drawback is the heavy battery that can weigh up to several kilograms. Luckily, underwater, weight is not an issue. The result that we can see before us makes all our efforts worthwhile. In the Mexican jungle, the entrance to the cenote is often disguised as an inconspicuous pond. Most often it was created when the earth was weakened by acid rain and tree branches collapsed, opening the way to the underground tunnel. That's why there are so many trunks and branches at the bottom. Scientists currently estimate that there are approximately 6,000 cenotes in the Yucatan. So far, we have managed to explore only a small fraction. During an expedition, speleologists discover new rock formations. One such discovery are the Hell Bells, located 30 meters under the water surface of the Zapote cenote. No one knows how these hollow stalactites were formed. One hypothesis points to the idea of drafts of air that once circulated within these caves. These winds deformed the deposit, which after some time transformed into the hollow Hell Bells we know today. But no one knows the true origin yet. Nature still manages to keep its secrets. One part of the Yucatan caves is fairly easy to explore. The entrances are well lit, the weather conditions are favorable, and the water is relatively clear. In some cenotes, the roof has collapsed in many places, which makes it possible to dive in full daylight. It makes us feel safe, and also creates an enchanting spectacle of light. This resembles an ancient temple, basking in light and shadow. The water is extremely clean here, free of plankton and unbroken by waves and currents. It's almost as if it weren't there. It feels like traveling through space. Most underwater caves, however, require the highest level of diving expertise. They're accessible, only to the chosen few. Exploration is difficult due to their position. They're often vast and very deep. Inside, there is pitch black darkness, and there is no way to immediately emerge. Diving requires a lot of preparation, good lighting, marking the way, and most of all, resistance to stress. For those who overcome their weaknesses and master the technical aspect of cave diving, unforgettable sights await them, worthy of true explorers. Ahead lies a gateway to one of these mysteries. The diver enters the crevasse, equipped with many tanks, each containing different breathing gases that allow deep and long diving. Thanks to the lines left by previous explorers, we can quickly move forward. Once we reach the end of these corridors, we can try to chart a new way forward, to find new passageways and chambers. In this way, our expedition further explores the area. The rigging begins. Finding one's way in an underwater cave that is completely dark without any visible signs is only possible thanks to this line. Like Ariadne's thread, it safely guides us back to the exit. Underwater scooters allow us to move quickly. For the diver who is carrying all this equipment, every move is a big effort that forces him to inhale more of the precious breathing gas, limiting the time he can spend underwater. The sooner we use up our gas, the sooner we will have to go back. There is one rule of thumb amongst cave divers. When one of the members of the expedition uses 1/3 of their breathing gas, the entire group has to come back. Safety is the priority here. Every mistake can be fatal, and that's why trust and responsibility play such a crucial role. Suddenly, the water turns murky, the image fades, and the diver in front of us becomes barely discernible. This is halocline, a temporary layer separating waters of different salinities. Once we pass through it, the visibility is perfect again. Exploring underwater caves is less invasive than going through dry corridors. In the narrow, low tunnels, the diver's job is always easier. Swimming and finding passageways poses less difficulty as well. We can explore caves at any height, provided there is enough space. If this cave were dry, the speleologists could have reached this point only by climbing. All goes smoothly until the passageways are wide enough. When we reach tight crevasses, going through them can prove quite challenging. The diver must often take off his equipment and push it through, then squeeze through himself. It requires a lot of experience, nerves of steel, and for the diver to be in good physical shape. At the bottom of this cave, we can see how the water levels changed through different stages of the Ice Age. This is how this double-bottomed phenomenon was created. A thin layer of deposit covered the ice-filled trough. When the ice melted, the deposit remained in place. Cave formations can take various shapes, depending on the place where they were formed. Here we have the opportunity to witness large, rounded stalagmites. Beautifully shaped curtains and hangings. And stalactites, petrified at different stages of their formation. From thin strings to those with a more massive shape. The walls and floor are covered with crusts, which are a very thick form of deposit. These absolutely unique sites are the calcite-coated plants that cover the stalactites, left here for thousands of years and frozen in their shape by water. Each cave is one of a kind and has its own unique character. There are no two caves alike. We can always find something new or see something extraordinary. We're aware that we have explored less than a fraction of 1% of these underwater gems of natural architecture. Most still wait to be discovered. The world hidden in darkness will never cease to amaze us.